and welcome back to my channel, Happy Artist. I've been gone for a while, so this is my first video, and what better way to come back than with my biggest commission piece ever. Throughout this video, I'm going to give you some tips on how I conquered this piece, because I know in most cases it's so easy for us to pour on small canvases, but when we get that question for a big canvas, we get a little bit nervous, right? So I'm going to give you a few tips. Let's get right into it. Hot tip number 1 is practice. Do not just go straight in on the big canvas with all of the paint that you've bought. Practice on a small canvas first to try and make sure that you're getting the exact technique that you're wanting, the composition you're wanting, and the color shades. Because we all know, sometimes when you pour, your wet look is beautiful, but when it dries, some of the colors turn dull. So it's good for you to make sure that whatever colors you're currently using on that small canvas, you can actually show the client what the end result is going to look like. It also gives you a platform to speak to the client and say, is this what you were imagining? Especially when it comes to acrylic pouring. Because one thing you have to try and remember when you're doing commission pieces is explaining to the client that what they have in their minds and what you're going to try and portray is going to be different. Because let's be honest, there is no way you can control pour to the point that you can get exactly what they are looking for, even if you did understand exactly what they're looking for. Hot tip number 2 is get those consistencies perfect. You need to make sure that you know what technique you're going to be using and therefore use the consistencies correctly. If you don't, again in your practice pieces, you will learn that things are not going to go the way you want them to, even less so. So you need to make sure that the consistencies are spot on. Once you've done all the practice pieces, it's pretty easy. Make sure that you've got your space ready. In this case, I needed a massive empty garage. Hot tip number 3 is take your time mixing the paints to get to the correct consistency now that you are moving on to your larger canvas. When you're mixing the paints in small quantities, obviously the ratios you're trying to use might be slightly different to now when you are needing to use it in much bigger cups. So definitely make sure that you have got larger cups, plastic cups, polystyrene cups, silicone cups, jars even. Make sure that you have big enough jars so that you can mix as much paint in one go as you can. Because this was my first massive piece, I landed up having to mix paint a few times, especially the two main colors, the burnt orange and the blue. Here I'm going for a bloom swipe technique, and you'll see in quite a few of my previous videos, the bloom experiments was one, trying to get the experiments right with the correct products, because in South Africa we don't have the products for the bloom technique, and also how different swipes are going to create completely different images. And I landed up using a palette sort of swipe. I find, especially if you have a client who has a specific image in mind, it's actually quite nice to have them there with you to talk through the piece as you're going. If they only give you colors, then it's a little bit easier and you can pretty much do whatever you want. But if they have a specific composition in mind, I found it quite easy to have them there with me so that they could guide me and say, actually, they prefer the lacing to go further down on this side, further up on that side. Can we add a few specks of color over here? Can we redo a swipe over there? Instead of just finishing it, letting it dry, and when they see it for the first time, they actually think, ooh, there's a few changes they would have wanted to have made. Rather have them there while it's wet. That is hot tip number 5. Great. Now you need to make sure that this place that is going to stand in is going to be dust-free, dog-free, cat-free, bird-free, whatever the case is, for a while, because it's going to need to sit and stand there to dry. Also make sure that you don't have any fans on, any open windows, a draft, because that will also possibly create cracking. And something that I'm going to mention, but I think is quite obvious, make sure that the surface that it is sitting on is level. Otherwise, even just a slight tilt and everything will slowly pour off the side. So here you've gone and spent all of your time and energy getting the perfect painting, and by the time you get to see it in an hour's time, 3 hours time, or the following day, it's going to look extremely different. Now that you've got the confidence, go out there, buy that big canvas and play around with it. And remember, yes, at the end of the day, it is an expensive exercise, but if you or the client are not happy, let everything dry and reuse that exact same canvas. The exact technique you're wanting, because we all know sometimes, depending on what sort of brand or color, opaque, and the colors are all wet. Take your time. Next tip, because I don't know which one it is. Let's just check my time. I know you enjoyed watching that video, so have a look at this one over here. And if you are struggling with consistencies at all, this is a really, really good one to be watching.